Hello, Cage Rage fans. It's the first episode of Cage Rage, a Nicolas Cage podcast, with myself, Daryl Edge, as we journey into the complete and entire works of Nicolas Cage. I just want to apologise from the off about any audio issues. This is a very humdrum ragtag operation that I have running here, but we'll get through it. We're going to have a good time, and that good time actually starts back in 1983. See what I did there? I did a link. Good, right, you're in capable hands. And we go back to where it started in 1983 for Nicolas Cage with his first leading role in the romantic drama Valley Girl by Atlantic Releasing Corporation, directed by Martha Coolidge, written by Andrew Lane and Wayne Crawford. It is a film of two outsiders coming together to try and put aside their differences, allegedly loosely related on Romeo and Juliet, although there's not enough deaths or Shakespearean language for my liking. So the film starts with the same way that any film in Hollywood should start, with a helicopter shot of Hollywood. The Hollywood sign, you know the one, because it makes it very clear that we're in Hollywood. Why wouldn't we be? This is the Valley Girl. The Valley Girls, all of them, they seem to sound like yeah, like they've got a throat full of wasps. And then there's Nicolas Cage's character, Randy, who is... It's weird to say I don't actually know, because at no point it explains who his character is, where he comes from, what he does other than he's different because he wears a material vest and a red shirt combo. He's not the preppy guy. It's strange to see Nicolas Cage so young. It's honestly weird to see his face so smooth, like a smooth peanut butter. It's quite a downstated Nicolas Cage performance, probably because he was still finding his feet as an actor, I assume. Not a lot of Cage losing his shit moments, although, interestingly, we get glimpses of them. We get glimpses of what is to come 20 years later, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, and it was fascinating to see him slowly tapping into that potential that we all know he has. Like him toying with going Super Saiyan, but he's not quite there yet. We've got to watch 100 more episodes of him charging that spirit bomb before he unleashes it on cinema and Hollywood and history. It's very exciting. So we've got the perspective of the Hollywood hills. We're going over all the hills, and we get to the girls, Julie and the girls. Julie is our main protagonist of the Valley Girl ladies in this film. Now, we introduced her in the shopping mall, and they're discussing the boys. Of course they are. So, here's the dilemma from the off. Julie is in a bit of a conundrum. She's with Tommy. She's bored of Tommy. We're all bored of Tommy. Fuck Tommy. Tommy in this film looks like an evil Will Forte. Evil Will Forte, I'm not sure how you say his name. If you've seen the Tim and Eric sketch of him going like, "Who put these holes in my belts?" Just imagine that, but without the mustache, more of a curtain haircut. And that's basically Tommy. Now, she's more interested in Brad because she's bored of Tommy. Now, we don't really see much more of Brad after this, apart from one scene later on. The only reason I can establish that Brad is a hunk in 1983 Hollywood is because he has a perm. If anyone who was around in 1983 can offer some clarity on this, that would be fantastic. But apparently, if you had a perm, that immediately meant you had a raging hard-on. You just had a throbbing hog. Everyone knew it, and that was the way to go. Now, I look at myself now thinking, how different your life could have been if you had a nice little ginger perm. That would have been wonderful, wouldn't it? But it's just another of the list of regrets that I'm just going to have to add to my life. But Brad and Tommy will become quickly irrelevant as we skip, and you better believe I time mark this, to 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Check out that beat chunk. It's Nicolas Cage running on the beach. Now, at this point is where I said to myself, right, now I'm fucking invested in this. We've got Cage on the beach. He's got this chest hair that looks like the bat signal. It's just this weird sort of star-shaped bat signal on his chest, as if to say, don't worry, I won't get the role of the Joker, but that is who I'm largely going to be basing my career around for the next 30 plus years. It makes a few appearances, this chest hair. I'm kind of fascinated by it, because I can't grow chest hair. If you've seen me, I might as well have just drawn little lines with a biro pen. It's pathetic, if anything. Nicolas Cage, again, putting what fragile and little masculinity I have to shame. And I wasn't even born at this point. Now, Cage and Julie, you better believe that they share a glance, right? Cage is our underdog, he's our hero, he's the guy that we're supposed to be rooting for, allegedly. It still seems quite strange that Nick Cage, of all people, was the one they cast as the punk hero. You just imagine the meeting they had in the early 80s, who are we gonna have as our hot punk beach hero who's gonna woo this valley girl? And then they thought, you know what, Nick Cage is the teen heartthrob that we're gonna pin all our hopes on in this. I'm sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that he was in this film, because it's just another example of his range. But surely Johnny Depp would have been in the running at this stage, you would have thought. And the poster for this does imply he's going to be a lot more punk than he actually is in the film. He's got sort of 2 bits of dyed stuck-up fringe, a bit of pink, a bit of blue going on in there. He doesn't have any of that in this. He wears a tie at some point, so you know he's edgy, right? Who wears a tie anymore in 2020? I don't. I'm in pyjamas recording this because I'm a fucking loser. Now, we've got the established that Nick Cage and Julie like each other. I'm going to be slipping between Cage and Randy. They're interchangeable. Nick Cage is the sum of his parts and his characters. So just putting that out there. Now we get to sort of the party later on. This is where a few things take place. Now Nick Cage's friend Fred, I've said that like this was an autobiography about Nicolas Cage, like he was actually there and wasn't acting. Randy's friend Fred has overheard the details of the party. He's passed it back to Randy. Randy's not interested. The Valley Girl scene, the Valley scene, that's not what he's into. But Julie's going to be there, right? So you're going to be where Julie is. So they crash the party. They head up to I believe Stacey's house, who's hosting this, and immediately people don't want them to be there, but Julie does, because now she's blown off Tommy at this point. She's not interested. She's approached Brad and his wonderful golden perm. And Brad is not interested. He doesn't want to know. Julie's made all this effort for you. She's said no to the most popular guy in the school. I'm assuming it's Valley High. I have no idea what the school is called. He doesn't really bother with that. Why would you? It's not important. What I enjoyed about this scene is that a number of times the camera has a shot of two extras, this guy and a girl dancing in the background, and I think the girl is supposed to go in for a kiss with the other extra, and then he absolutely palms her off. He just avoids it. He just keeps avoiding it. He didn't want to be any part of it, and they got that shot. This couple gets a bit of screen time in this scene, to be honest, and the director decided, you know what, that's close enough. We'll get that. I don't have time for this. So I wonder what they're up to now. Do they still think, oh yeah, this was my breakout role and I fucked it. I was supposed to be doing a kiss and I went straight for the cheek because I'd only met her 5 minutes before we started filming. That's the kind of gentleman I am. It's so interesting watching extras sometimes just mouthing. There's a guy later on who somehow alerts Tommy and his cronies to Randy just by standing in front of them for about 5 seconds and then gesturing with his thumb, and yet they all understand what he's on about. I wish I was an extra and I could just raise my eyebrows and be like, eh. And yet all the characters would know exactly where I'm coming from. Just imagine. Eh. If you're looking for tips to acting as an extra, then just hit me up on Twitter. I'll be sure to help you out. Now we also get the start here of a really odd and unnecessary subplot starring Julie's friend Susie and Susie's mother Beth, who both interestingly look exactly the same age. There's something in the water in America that does not age people. Now, Julie and her friend are supposed to be 15 or 16 in this. They look early 20s. Susie's stepmom looks about 25 at a push. It was a different time in the 80s. It was a free time. I guess you just married who you wanted, and that was the end of it. And that's how all the resentment from the 90s to today started, I guess, by unhappy home lives. Now, Susie and her stepmother are both interested and weirdly competitive to flirt with a guy named Skip, because of course that's his name. Of course that's a name that you had in the 80s. That was... No one batted an eyelid. If you called someone Skip now, that's the opposite side of the same spectrum of naming someone Keith. You don't do it. Skips should remain as crisps. And I hope they'll both just fade away and be like, what? Remember Keith? No, I don't remember any Keith, even though Keith still works in the same office that you do. And he just slowly fades away like in Avengers in the same Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Fucking Keith. I should point out as well, Skip also has a perm. So this seems to be a thing of in the background. If you're not Tommy and you're not Randy, you're not the higher echelons of two different social spectrums, but you've got a perm, there is someone that will want to gobble your nuts. They just want to swirl them round like mouthwash. Other extras in the background did not have perms, and no one gave a shit. I think it's the mullet's making a comeback now. I think maybe we bring back the perm as well. Maybe that's the thing that needs to happen here. Now this is a plot as well that will it will continue throughout the film. This film would have been about 20 minutes shorter if this wasn't a thing. It didn't need to be a thing. And the more I think about Skip, just trying to get his end away with daughters and mothers, because 1983 was a lawless time where there was no God or higher power, makes me angry. You just don't go around sleeping with mothers because you've got a perm. Skip. Absolute fucking Skip. But whilst that's going on downstairs, Tommy, who is, and I'm air quoting, this is audio, you can't see that, he's real beat up about Julie leaving him. He takes advantage. I know that has too many connotations this day and age, but he's at least very persuasive to try and get into bed with Julie's friend Lauren. They go as far as to expose breast. This actual tit in this. Nicolas Cage's first film, and you're getting an eye full of nips. You know, that's a thing that happens. Wasn't expecting that. I thought we were going to have to wait until the late 90s for some absolute Cage tit. But it happens now. Now, Tommy is... you obviously know he's a bit of a douche. That's probably the most 80s term I can use. They also use descriptive terms like tubular to describe cool people in this film. Let's bring back perms and tubular, that's all I'm saying. Now, Tommy, he has a feel up, he has a few squeezes in there, because that's classic Tommy. That's the kind of nonsense he's getting up to. And he plays the manipulation cards at this point. He turns Lauren down. She's like, oh, I don't know about this. You're having a little go on my nip-nips. Does this mean that we're a thing now? Tommy's like, nah, mate, you're a terrible friend. And he just moses on out of there. Lauren's left with all of that emotional destruction to contend with. But don't worry too much, because this plot point never comes up again. You think there's going to be some internal distress between Lauren and Julie, it's going to go to some breaking up of the friendship later on. Spoiler, doesn't happen. Does not happen. So Tommy, for better or worse, he got away with it. He had a cup of the teacups. I don't know what size they are, I don't know why I said that, I'm so sorry. He had a cup of the cups. He got away with it scot-free. This never comes back. And we all just carry on with our lives, because that's what you did. Now, after this, Tommy, he sees Randy in the party. Randy with his friend Fred. Fred's getting nowhere. They're stuck out like sore thumbs amongst all the preppy kids. Tommy sees Randy and Julie talking. There's definitely a connection here. They're off to a good start. Tommy doesn't like it. This is where the extra with the thumb comes in. He's like, oh, get a load of Cage over there. He's after Julie. Julie, big Jules. He wants Julie's. And Tommy says, nah, mate. They have a bit of a scrap. We get some of our first Cage action scenes that we're gonna get. He throws some punches in. Eventually, they get thrown out. And this is where we get a little hint, our first little whisper, a little start a course banquet, yes sir please, I'll have the bottle of some Cage Rage. Now this is minor Cage Rage, this isn't the kind of big league stuff we're going to be talking about in a few weeks time. Randy and Fred are driving down the highway, they pull over the car. Randy is livid about this. He knows there's a connection. He kicks the car. Fred's not happy about it. Who would be happy about these bullies? We get to 20 minutes and 30 seconds. At this point, and I think this is very important not to skim over this, 20 minutes and 30 seconds, we get our first documented Nicolas Cage fuck you. I just want you to take a moment and drink that in. Our first documented Nicolas Cage fuck you, because he and in his own words, he will not be told who he can and cannot score with, and this clocks in about, on the Cage scale of rage, the Cage rage scale, a 2.5, a generous 2.5. But let me tell you, if I wasn't invested before, this is what you come for. This is where the fucking gold is. So, we're thinking, well, he's going to go back. This is his chance to burst in, tell Tommy, right, you tit, you absolute tit. Julie, we're not finished here. This is where, in the words of the Spice Girls, two become one. Or if it's a Mexican operation, when two become Juan. So they go back to the house, and this is another one of these parts of the films where choices happen in this film. This was written into the script. They decided this was a good idea. Rather than just going through the front window, make a scene and state your claim, Randy climbs in through the bathroom window. I still don't understand why this happened. He climbs in through the bathroom window, and then you think, okay, maybe he's just trying to sneak in. Maybe he's just trying to be a bit more discreet rather than just cause another scene when he's outnumbered, and he's just going to go in from upstairs to downstairs. No, he climbs in through the bathroom window and then inexplicably hides in the shower. He fucking hides in the shower for about a good few minutes of this film. And then the plan is, obviously, he's waiting for Julie to come in. It's a big assumption that she might even need to use the bathroom at this stage. So he climbs in, hides in the shower, and he just spies and peeps on various comings and goings of teenagers getting up to various hijinks. There's a couple that get it on, more nips, because of course there is. He's listening to some ladies have a conversation in which they describe jerking off as, and I quote, shaking hands with your best friend, but real fast. So there, if you want to adopt a new euphemism for masturbation, there's one saying, oh, I've just got to go upstairs and greet my friend real quick. So there's a thing. Eventually Julie arrives, and weirdly enough, Julie is not shocked by this. She's not upset. She's not disturbed or anxious or in any way put off by this. In fact, she's very much on board with it. Randy eventually gets Julie to agree to leaving the party. She brings along her friend with her, and together Randy and Fred and the ladies, Julie and Stacey, they drive into the city. They drive into Hollywood to the sound of Pat Travers' song I La 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 Love You, with, if anything, a gratuitous amount of location shots and billboards. There's a production of An Officer and a Gentleman going on with Richard Gere, which is, if anything, awfully ignored. They've passed that right up. But here, in between all of this, when they're driving, it's clear they're trying to make sense of, like, oh, Randy's a fairly big deal in this part of town. He knows a lot of the characters, he knows a lot of people in and around, and a group of guys that they drive past, one of them does what I can only describe as a kind of sexy wiggle at him, just like a gesticulating hip shake kind of movement, and you really have to hear this to believe it. He does this squawk laugh 30 minutes and 44 seconds in, and it's not the only time he does it in the film. He does this squawk laugh. It's a real thing. It's the best impression I can come up with, and I've been thinking about this since I watched this film last night. He goes, "Ah!" And I probably should have given you a headphone warning there, but it's like, "Ah!" It honestly sounds like someone stamped on a seagull's neck, and that was the sound that came out. This is a choice that Nicolas Cage has made, which I'm fully on board with. But in the same way that in Jurassic Park, when Jeff Goldblum does that laugh, like, and you know for a fact that the director definitely told Jeff Goldblum not to do that laugh. It's like, okay, I guess I understand that we're in Jurassic Park and there's dinosaurs everywhere and we're taking some liberties with suspension of disbelief, but people don't laugh like that. Let's not. Spielberg was like, let's just laugh like a normal person, and Goldblum was like, oh yeah, oh wow, yeah, okay, yeah. And then he just went and did it anyway, and Spielberg thought, you fuck's sake, Goldblum, every time. And that is exactly the kind of stunt that Cage has pulled here. There are sounds and noises that come from this man that I know. And I've not done the testing because I don't have the time for that, but I know for a fact no one else can do the sounds that Nicolas Cage can do. And these are things that we'll touch upon in later episodes, but if you've seen the video online, Nicolas Cage losing his shit, or even if you just search Nicolas Cage boo-hoo, in which we're supposed to believe that this is crying, and he just goes, "Oh, oh." Incredible. And you start to understand that, even at this point in his early career, the build-up of momentum, and this is exactly why he's an award-winning actor, and Netflix will not stop giving him films. And good on you, Netflix, for making the brave choice in this economy, in this environment, to give the people what they want, and by that I mean me. So eventually the four of them, they go to this bar. It's all red lit, there's a band on. The best way to describe it is like if a brewdog was run by vampires. It's got that kind of aesthetic about it. Everyone knows Randy there. He's a bit of a known person there. He just goes up to these people who are sat down and he just gets them to move. He says, "Oh, the lady wants to take a seat," and they just move. They just do it. This is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know that I'll ever see anything like it again. You just go to a table of strangers and ask them to move, and they do it. This is the kind of world I could only dream of. Imagine that, Zane. I want to sit down, and this person just looks at you and is like, "Yeah, sounds like a fair request." Like, I know we're in difficult times and strange times right now, but if we can just shoehorn in the request and move, do you have any idea how much society and our life would improve? Honestly, you can't see it, but I'm smiling. I'm smiling right now. Now, Randy's also, at this point, explaining to Julie, quite on the nose, about how much better his way of living is, how their music is better. He says that this anti-Brewdog is the real world, their music is full of emotion. But one of the key points in this film another thing that is thrown into your face quite a lot. The message is it doesn't matter the way you live your life, the way you dress, the music that you live to, the music that you listen to, as long as you follow your heart. Because people can be different, but we're all the same. And if you take away nothing else from this, is that people are different, but we're all the same. And it would have been a bit more palatable at this point if Randy wasn't shouting this into Julie's face, just saying, like, shouting that she's programmed, that she's been built up to live in this way, that's just not real, because this is classic Randy. And yet, if crawling through a bathroom window, hiding in a shower, abducting you from a house party, taking you to an environment you have no idea about, and then being shouted in your face by Nicolas Cage that your entire life is wrong, was not enough to put you off of this man. Make no mistake, Julie's resolve will not be tested. She is not put off by this at all. If anything, her being cussed out and just told everything she's ever known in her 16 years is wrong. If she wasn't hard for him before, she was now, and because of this, when you've been explained in such a way that you have this connection, they do a kiss. They finally kiss, as do Fred and Stacy. I will also add that Stacy was not interested in Fred. She's made it quite clear that she finds him a creep. But they kiss as well, and it is 100% definitely not awkward. There is nothing awkward about any of the connections in this film. It's also natural. Because in the 1980s teen romance, angsty genre, boy meets girl, and that's the end of it. There's not a lot of time for character development. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. And then next, this is followed up by a nice little music montage of Randy and Julie hanging out. They are making plans together, they're making out some more, and we're getting this progression that, you know, they're having a good time, they're enjoying their time together, and what we get next is a little bit more explanation on Julie and her background, and Julie's parents get a lot of time. It was already explained that they were sort of products of the 60s, they're quite hippie, liberal parents. The film wants to remind you of this for no other reason than because, well, of course you needed to have cool parents in the 80s. Of course you did. You're either a square and your dad was in the army, or your mother was a flower necklace wearing hippie smoking pot. There was no in between, and these are two cool parents. And they are totally okay with their daughter being out all night, tonguing Nicolas Cage tonguing her, because they're totes libs, totes liberales, and it is also expressed that Julie has never pulled a stunt like this before, but that's the Cage effect. This is the Cage effect. This is what he does. He takes your daughters, he kisses them on top of some kind of Lover's Lane peak thing, and he'll drop them off in the morning, and you're gonna be okay with it. You've got to be okay with it, because what else are you gonna do? Tell Nicolas Cage that he can't make out with your daughter? I'm not gonna look at Nicolas Cage and tell him that he can't make out with my daughter. I don't have a daughter, I have a cat, but if Nicolas Cage wants to, if that's what he's into, then I'm not gonna tell him he can't do it. And I know you wouldn't do it either, because you don't have the stones to tell Nicolas Cage that he can't do that with your cat. Just imagine, like, the car rolls up, your daughter gets out, or your son gets out. I'm not going to assume Nicolas Cage's sexuality, even though he's got a goth child. And then Nicolas Cage drops her off. I think, well, that's it. That's the rest of my child's life. At the behest and whims of the wants and needs, the wanton ways of Nicolas Cage. Now, next up, Julie and the girls, they are having a bit of a gossip during all of this. They're having a gossip during Julie's driving lesson. So that's interesting. Julie's driving. The other three ladies are in the back. They're all having a gossip. The driving instructor is being completely and utterly ignored. He is, I suppose, pleading with Julie to keep her eyes on the road. And do you think that you will keep your eyes on the road when you spent the night with Cage? No. Of course you don't. And it gets to the point where the instructor literally dives out of the car and no one notices. That man almost died. He could have been clipped by another car. No one gave a shit because Julie is so smitten with Randy. That is the power of love in '83, to the point where Julie described Randy as an awesome dude. Can you imagine being described as an awesome dude? And like, no hint of irony. It's like, oh yeah, that guy's a, awesome dude. My driving instructor's dead. And there's no way I'm ever going to pass my test now or get rid of this shitty little provisional license. Because I killed him. And I'm in some way responsible for this involuntary manslaughter. But Randy's an awesome dude. Let's not forget about that. Let's not forget about what a cool guy Randy is. Now we go back to Beth. Don't you think we've forgotten about Beth? The plot doth continue here in Beth world, where our misunderstood secondary hero Skip is making a delivery to the residence of Stacy and Beth. Now, Beth is only available. Beth takes the delivery, and she's very much wanting a dip in from skipping. She wants a skip dip below the hip, and she's giving it some lip. A skip dip below the hip, she's giving it some lip. She's very on the nose with this. She basically says to Skip, yeah, I've got a daughter, and she's interested in you. Yes, I'm married. But for no other reason. No established reason other than I need to give Stacy some form of dilemma in this film. I want you to raw hog me on this sun lounger in the garden. Now Skip, I will say, he puts the deliveries first, because if anything's going to come first in this film, it's Skip's deliveries. And I applaud Skip for his restraint. You just don't see that. You just don't see a lot of that. You know he wants to. Because Skip, and I'm going to say it, Skip was Stifler before Stifler was Stifler. American Pie watched Valley Girl, and they've based Stifler on Skip. Or was it Stifler? Who was the one that banged the mom in the American Pie? Probably should have googled that before I started recording. Well, Beth is Stifler's mom. That's what I'm getting at here. That's probably the one I should have gone for. The mom who got banged, and it was like a whole thing in the early 2000s, like, oh! Now we learn that Julie works for her parents at a health food store. Randy goes to visit them. Now we think this is going to be a bit of a confrontation here between Randy and Julie's dad. Absolutely not. They just slap hands because they are the two coolest dudes in this film. There's no tension whatsoever. Randy has a chat with Julie, asks if he can have a Coke, because if you want to know what kind of thing Randy drinks, it's a Coke. But Julie's like, oh no, I can't give you a Coke. They supported the war effort. Randy's still into that. I'm still into Coke. You can make a delicious drink and be slightly responsible for a few deaths as long as you're delicious. I think we can all agree on that. If Pepsi were responsible, even cherry Pepsi, I hate cherry, but they'd kill like some, I'm going to assume they're war criminals. I could be into cherry in a big way. I could be raged for cherry if I knew that they contributed to the war effort, because God bless our soldiers, right? Yeah. Next we get some more scenes of them, Randy and Julie having a great time. They're kissing and smooching without a care in the world, because coronavirus wasn't a thing 30 years ago. Remember when there wasn't a coronavirus? Remember when you could go outside and get toilet roll? Remember when we had hope? I remember. And Tommy, he's seen all this going on. He's seen them at the mall, and he's not happy about it. He looks a little bit sad. Tommy's sad that he's lost out to Nicolas Cage, as we all would be before the acceptance comes into play. And at this point, Tommy tries to weaponize Julie's friends against her. He starts whispering in their ear, and the line he uses, which is the tipping point for the ladies, is that a gig could scar her for life. A gig could scar her for life. Little did Tommy know that in 30 years the Marvel franchise would scar us all in one way or another. So, love him or loathe him, this man was a prophet. This man knew things that we couldn't even have dreamed of. All you had back in '83 was the after effects of Lou Ferrigno as the Incredible Hulk. We couldn't have known about the Click in '83. We had Tommy knew. Tommy knew two things. That was that Spider-Man and the Marvel franchise was coming, and that Nicolas Cage was raw dogging his girl. And we laughed at him because he was a preppy guy. He was a jock. I just think there's a lot to be learned from this. You can take a lot of films at face value, but if you're accepting the underlying messages, what's not being said, that's how you start getting the brain cogs turning. Am I right? I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. Now the girls have a sleepover. The ladies are teasing Julie, saying if you're going to be Randy, you can't go to any more parties, because that was what life mattered for back then when you were of a certain age. Skip calls up. He's looking for some sweet MILF action, but he just gets Stacy. Nothing against Stacy, but that's not what he wanted. And now she invites Skip over. Skip says, nah, I've got some shit to do. That shit does not involve you, it involves me hawking your mother. And that's sort of the end of it now. Julie's having some doubts at this point, the seeds have been planted, and while she's mulling this over, the subplot continues, because the next day, Skip cycles on over to the Stacy Beth residence. He has some second thoughts, he does a full 360, he enters the house, he says hello, is Stacy home? He just grabs a book from the side. He's used the old grab what you can see routine as his excuse for being there, but no response. We follow him upstairs as he sees a figure in the shower. Now we don't know who it is at this point, and Skip smiles. Now this could be anyone, we don't know who it is, but drumroll, it's only bloody Susie in the shower, isn't it? It's Susie in the shower. We had no reason to believe that he was that interested in Susie, but he's seen her through stained glass window, and he's thought, you know what, the apple doth not fall far from the Beth tree, and he gives Susie a porking. A 1983 let's get down to biz-a-ness, and that is effectively the subplot that yes, the stepmother may have the gift of the gab, but the integrity of a young delivery boy will never stray him far from his true love's genitals. So if you're writing your screenplay at the moment and you need some inspiration, there's internal family conflict 101. Now, going back to the main plots, Julie, clearly conflicted. She doesn't know what to do. Does she stick with Randy, who she's got these feelings for? Does she go back to Tommy because that's what her friends want? And her dad here actually gives a really solid piece of advice. He shows us some pictures of him when he had longer hair, in his hippie heyday, in his prime time of the 60s, and he shows her these images and he says, look, it doesn't matter what clothes people wear, it doesn't matter the way that other people want you to be, none of that matters as long as you know what you want and you follow your own heart. You dig? And so far, this is the most sensible thing that anyone has done in this film. Yes, we're gratuitously aware that he's a hippie, but he's a hippie with a brain, god damn it. And it's actually quite a good message, if nothing else. It's a very nice message. You do you. You do you. Don't worry if Nicolas Cage is coming at you with his squawk laugh. Don't worry if Tommy's coming in with his curtain hair. And it is a beautiful curtain haircut. Used to have one myself when I was 4. We all had one in the early 90s, if you were a guy. If you're listening to this and you were a child of the 90s, don't act like you didn't. Like you didn't have a curtain or a bowl haircut, because we all did. But the bowl haircut, the curtains, big tipping point here as Julie decides to get back with Tommy. Now this, in my opinion, not tubular. Absolutely the least tubular thing that could have happened was that Cage has been denied. I didn't like it. This tested my resolve to carry on this film, but I owed it to Nicolas Cage and to you to do just this. So she goes back to Tommy, as Tommy just happens to walk in on her and her friends after this decision at a diner, and then Tommy just crams her hamburger down his face. I don't know about you, but this one, but you know what, I'm doing a full 360 on this, you can get fucked. You don't just take a woman's hamburger, he gives her a bracelet, but a given bracelet does not a hamburger eat and make, as the old Shakespearean saying goes. So all in all, not tubular at all. Very, very untubular. Now, Randy, unaware of these developments, he goes to visit Julie. He's suited and booted, by the way. He's got a nice matching, fashionably oversized suit on. And he just wants to go and hang out with Julie. She's like, oh my god, I can't believe that you never call. Then he tries to play it off. He's like, I'll go down the street, I'll use a payphone, then I'll let you know that I'm calling. Julie, very emotional, says like, no, this can't work anymore. You need to leave. She's going back to Tommy. And it's an emotional breakup, and Randy, getting the message, he storms off down the drive and justifiably, I will add at this point, retorts with, and I quote, fuck off for sure, like, totally. Let that sink in. Fuck off for sure, like, totally. Like, fuck off, sure, I want you to fuck off, but I want you to fuck off so much that the measurement of your fucking is total. In the speak of the time, this was a catastrophic blow. and I will be telling the next person that tries to steal toilet roll from me in the supermarket that they can fuck off ashore. Like, totally. Now, when you're Nicolas Cage and you've taken a significant blow like this, what do you do? Where do you go? Well, we quickly find out he goes back to the anti-Brewdog, the evil Brewdog. He gets, and I'm knocking stuff over here because I'm so emotional about this. He gets very drunk. He does the squawk laugh again, and then he finds his ex. The assumption is that it is his ex. It's not explained. It's not highlighted at any point. Who this person is, you kind of have to put 2 and 2 together to make 5. We know that she's called Samantha, and we know that she was very much into Randy because she's quite keen to tell Randy and tell us, the audience, that Randy feels good. He feels good. Randy, you feel so good. Which is, I'm actually wincing saying that out loud. And because he feels so good, and you know what? If you're just describing Nicolas Cage as feeling so good, I honestly don't doubt it. I don't think anyone doubts that. They go into a toilet, they get freaky, where Cage is in full raging hog mode. They get it on. But Randy's not, he's not completely over Julie. He immediately regrets this. And he tries to start a fight with some more people driving by in a car. He wants them to get out. But from enter stage left, Fred's back. We didn't forget about Fred. Fred has saved Randy from a beating, and he's going to help him get back on his feet, win Julie back. And so starts a little montage of plans in which he tries his best to win her back. He leaves messages for her on the radio. He even he literally camps on Julie's front lawn, like in a sleeping bag outside her window. There's winning someone back, and then there's walking the tightrope of getting a restraining order. It's a very fine line. I'm sure if you dumped someone and you found them sleeping in your garden or on your lawn, you'd have some more questions. Julie still very blasé, I will say to Julie, lovely girl, very, very blasé about all of this. We also get the only second bit of backstory that we really get on Randy. We don't know much about him at all, other than he's a cool outcast. When it is heavily implied that he works at a cinema, as Julie and Tommy are going in to watch a film, although Randy gets a steaming hot, a nice oven temperature zinger that he throws in here, where he's wearing 3D glasses, and Tommy asks him, "Is this in 3D?" And Randy replies, "No, but your face is." So, 1-0 to Nick Cage. I think 1-0 to Nick Cage on the Cage Zingers. So, you can take that one if you're ever in a 3D environment. Tell someone that their face looks 3D, and to fuck off totally. Your 3D face can fuck off totally, and they've got nothing. They've got nothing. Their soul will cease. Now, by this point, it's prom night, because of course it is. It's the 80s. Of course it's prom night. Josie Cotton is doing some songs. Now, Tommy's made a reservation for him and Julie at the Valley Sheridan. Again, it's not explained what this place is. Is it a restaurant? Is it a hotel? Is it a strip club? I don't know what it is. We don't ever find out. Now, Julie's parents see off the couple. Tom's got a chauffeur, because he's a big deal. They go to the prom. Randy and Fred infiltrate the prom. I say infiltrate, it's more that they just walk in and hide behind a curtain for a bit, behind some material. It's not much of a plan. Randy does comment on this, he's like, well, what's the next stage? And Fred said, no, next stage, this is it. This is simplicity at its finest. So they just walked into the prom, weren't questioned about it once. And Randy, he'd think, you're my best friend. I thought you might have some kind of plan here. No, there's no plan, but Randy, because he's a chill dude when he's not drunk and banging women in toilets, is completely okay with this. Now, I know you're wondering, I've said prom in the 80s, you're wondering, Daryl, is there punch? Is it in a punch bowl? Does that punch get spiked? The answer is yes, and yes, dude. Totally tubular. It gets punched. It gets spiked. We get that spiky punch. To this day, I am 28 years old. I have no idea what prom punch is. I want some. I want it spiked so I can have that true perm-tastic tubular experience and be an awesome dude. They don't get caught. There's a teacher dips his finger in. He says it's a bit flat. They have a little sigh of relief. Hardy, hardy, ha. Now, Julie and Tommy are moments from being announced as the prom king and queen. There was no indication that they were a good couple at any point up until any stage up until now. No indication that they were a good couple. But they've been back together a day, and now they're winning prom king and prom queen. Really? I didn't win prom king. I didn't even get a sniff or a hint of prom queen. I got told I was one of 2 best jokers in an award that was just to palm me and Troy off and shut us up. That's all I got. And I've got nothing to show for it since. Except this podcast, which I'm pinning all my hopes on. Because I'm definitely not redundant. Now Randy approaches Tommy. He hits him in the face. Tommy hits Randy back. They're all bruised in the face. He starts taking off his little prom belt attire thing, the weird waitery wibbly vest thing. He does a weird Karate Kid pose and a screamy jump kick. Completely unnecessary, because you would have thought from looking at Tommy that he could hold his own, but Randy, in possibly one of the only sensible things he does all film, he kicks Tommy in the dick. He kicks him square in the gingangoolies, punches him in the face, takes Julie, and they go to escape. Tommy and cronies pursue. A food fight ensues. Again, because of course it does. What is a prom without a food fight and spiked punch? And then they vacate the premises of the prom. They take Tommy's car. Tommy's chauffeur, who I have to believe has been paid to pick up Tommy, has no questions when Tommy doesn't turn up, and Randy and Julie get in the back, and he takes them to the Valley Sheridan. An absolute gross injustice of power, inexplicably ignoring his own duties, just taking 2 minors to wherever the hell it is they want to go. And then they drive off. Julie and Randy are all happy in the back of the car. Julie takes off Tommy's bracelet, throws it out the window in an act of solidarity. Tommy's behind me. I'm casting off all of these memories. And they go to the Valley Sheridan. As the credits start rolling and we see a highway, they go to the Valley Sheridan to, I'm assuming, fuck like absolute beasts. Just raw dog each other. Just go absolutely mental. And completely soil a room in someone else's name. And that's it. That's Valley Girl. That, it's boy meets girl. That classic Romeo and Juliet plot. There was no Montagues, no Capulets, no one died. There was no rhyming. There was some partial nudity. Nicolas Cage fucked a woman in the toilets. He did a squawk laugh. We got a 2.5 on the Nicolas Cage losing his shit scale. He kicked a car. And we got some nice music as well. This, as the first full film, Nicolas Cage's first full leading role acting credit, it was very nice. It was a nice introduction. Wasn't a brilliant film, wasn't terrible. As a normal film, I think I'd probably give this a 4.5 out of 10, maybe a 5 if I'm being generous. As a Nicolas Cage film, 10 out of 10, obviously, because he doesn't do bad films, and he's one of the few actors that if he said suck me off, I'd do it. I wouldn't even question it. So this gets a bronze Cage from me. This gets a bronze Nicolas Cage out of a possible golden Cage. I do not give out the golden Cages often. I don't give them out willy-nilly because I'm a Cage fan, but I'm not a madman. Let's make that very clear right now. And the big message to take away from all of this is it doesn't matter how other people dress. It doesn't matter how other people want you to be. It doesn't matter what music people want you to listen to, the way they want you to eat, or what they want you to drive, or what they want you to do with their lives. All that matters is following your heart and getting raw dogged by Nicolas Cage. And I think that's an amazing message to end the first episode on of Cage Rage, a Nicolas Cage podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you have been, thank you for sticking with me. There's at least 100 more of these to come, and I am very, very excited. So until the next one, keep on caging, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.